Get it, girl. You're watching LA City View, channel 35. This is our city and our channel.
I saw you in that Mustang, man. That thing was cool, that Mustang. Yeah, I could take that home. Hi. Morning. Today is Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Let the record reflect Commissioners Sobroff, Decker, Bonner, and Goldsmith are present, and we have a quorum.
Mr. President, before you start, item 5B as in boy is removed from the agenda today.
5B.
And I have a correction on item 1C. The donor to that item is the Supporters of Law Enforcement and Devonshire Division. It's correct on the report that's posted on the website, however, not correct on the agenda. It says the LA Police Foundation. It should be corrected to be Supporters of Law Enforcement in Devonshire.
Okay. Do we have any commissioner comments on any of the consent agenda items? Okay.
Item C, please.
Okay. Want to do that one first then? Go ahead.
Sure. With respect to item C, is there, or Chief, are you able to speak about this, or is there someone from your department? I'd just like a further explanation of $30,000, which appears to go to a holiday party.
Yes, so each year we have, via the Los Angeles Police Foundation, a donor who provides the city or the department with funding to recognize excellence in leadership. And that award, which was given out last March, February, March last year, it's an annual award, is a series of awards that actually go to one command within each of the 4 geographic bureaus, generally tied to crime reduction, improving public trust, overall performance of their command. And then some additional awards that go for innovation, technology, community engagement. The funding then for the recipient, for instance, in this instance, Devonshire, that funding is meant for employee wellness. So for activities that would go to a holiday party, to a sponsoring of a food truck or some other activity, including improving the gym or construction or gym equipment in a building, whatever activity that local command working with its employees believes is going to best improve morale and have a positive impact on the leadership within that command.
And this year they used it for celebration?
The holiday party. Each year we have a holiday party in generally all of our major commands. It is a employee attended. There are community members that will also attend, members of CPAB, other community stakeholders. It's hosted generally at a local banquet hall or hotel, and the costs are entirely borne by the employees and or contributions such as this to defray the costs for the cost of the dinner and entertainment and so forth.
Okay, do we have any public comments on any of the items A through E?
We have one comment card on each item from Mr. Herman.
Mr. Herman. Good morning.
Morning. Happy New Year.
Same to you, sir. Item number 1A.
Now, in regards to these donor awards, I believe in the interest of the public, and the public has addressed this commission to provide these donations or awards, this funding, to be publicized for the public to see, and I agree with that. You know, you can't allow donors who have a conflict of interest in local government, in which the FBI investigated the city of Los Angeles, our mayor, Eric Garcetti, for the record. So the department's responsibility is to continue with Police Foundation for such expenses until we can recover the actual managed of these donor donations. Because, as I mentioned before, the result is catastrophic because it disrupts and interacts in the disruption of city business, local business, because we have political corruption sponsored by donors. Thank you.
Okay. Is that on all, was that a general comment for all?
Pardon?
Was that a general comment for all of them?
No, sir, you called me per item, right?
Yeah, you can go on B now.
I'm sorry.
1B.
What about other public?
There's no other public comment cards on any of them.
Awesome. Coming back.
So you can just go right through.
On action B, folks. Oh, sorry about that. On action B, we have a police foundation amount of $39,000 to be executed and used for ongoing training. Now, with no due respect, Title II of the American Disability Act has specific training rules, which are followed by a pattern and practice in which I find Los Angeles Police Department in such a deficiency in training. Now, where am I going with this? Well, take, for example, Ezell Ford. Misuse of weapons
Mr. President, the
harm the
speaker's
public.
not speaking to the item before you today.
Let's go on topic. You're on
So by
1B.
this so-called implicit bias training, Mr. T. Fang, to sworn members should have adequate training at all times to reduce the liability of the city from lawsuits. And that is followed by Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, for your information, Mr. T. Fang. Followed by Section 6085, which articulates the right of persons to complain against the functions of this commission to the state bar in complaint.
Mr. President, not speaking to the item.
Okay, so we'll go to 1C now.
Oh, 1C.
Oh.
In addition to the Los Angeles Police, as a token of appreciation to the Devonshire area personnel, I am for it. Police officers, like good teachers who are on strike, for the record, deserve to be recognized in their excellence. Unfortunately, it's not done with transparency because the public is not invited. Public is not invited. How many times have I been seen at a ceremony for this type of ceremony? Not once in the last 5 years, in which I blame the city of Los Angeles for discrimination and without prejudice.
Off topic, let's just go to the next one. Number D, please.
So on item D, ladies and gentlemen, regarding Hollenbach, they want to destroy duplicate records. However, not to include but not limit to the right to fair, adequate, and reasonable opportunity for us, the public, to review these so-called obsolete records. Back in 2012, when Hollenbach had me in their detention and slapped me around, I think the public wants to know what obsolete records truly are.
Let's go to off topic and let's just go to number E now. That's the same thing in the Southwest area.
Well, I got nothing to say about the Southwest. They've been doing an excellent job because they're educated people out there.
Okay, thank you.
Not like Hollenbach.
Okay, thanks.
No offense.
Thanks.
What was my other item, sir?
What?
No, I didn't say what. I said what other item.
No, there are no other items. Thank you.
So I've completed my task here?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion for approval of consent agenda items A, B, C, D, and E.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's go to item number 2A, please. Do we have any commission questions on this? This came back from last week, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct, sir.
Okay, good.
The error has been corrected. The report
Okay.
before you is the corrected report.
Does anyone have any comments?
Yes,
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Why don't you just introduce yourself and your
Sure.
position?
Anne Marie Sauer, the Chief Financial Officer with Fiscal Operations Division.
William Hayes, Captain Commanding Officer, Robbery Homicide Division.
My questions are of a general nature first with respect to the process.
Okay.
I understand with respect to this, it'll now go over to mayor and council for their consideration, the broader budget issues that the city evaluates. Is that generally correct?
That is correct, yes.
My recollection from the past, but it's more the distant past than the recent past, is that frequently because of budgetary issues the city was facing, that monies from funds like this, asset forfeiture, would frequently be swept to take care of the normal business expenses of the department just because of revenue issues. Is that still true, or has that changed over the years?
The asset forfeiture is sort of two-part, where all of asset forfeiture is considered as part of the overall city budget process. The supplemental police account is the piece that the department has a little more control over. So yes, your recollection is correct that basically the city, when the mayor is putting together his proposed budget and when the council considers the proposed budget, that they do look at asset forfeiture. This 1.5 million, in the supplemental police account is basically where we present our expenditure plan. So this is where we say these are the items that we would like to fund. So typically this has moved forward as is versus the rest of the asset forfeiture funding.
Right, but at some point, the city council and the mayor may make other decisions related to this. Is that
That is
accurate?
completely possible, yes. I mean, we send over our expenditure plan, and then the CAO will do a report to the mayor and council, and obviously, this could change.
My second question is also of a general nature, not specific. I see here that there is a lot of proposed spending on technology projects. And I'm having a challenge of determining if these are to upgrade current technologies the department have or to obtain new ones. And maybe it's a combination of both. But if someone could speak just generally about the technology projects that are in here.
The telecommunications ones, is that what?
There are several different types
Oh,
of technology
I got it.
projects. Yeah.
Okay.
I can speak specifically to my requests. Those are two things. One is actually to upgrade or continue equipment that is becoming antiquated and no longer serviceable. And to stay up with technology as it changes is part of it. And then the other is a service that we use to pay for the bills. It's a recurring fund that we use to support that technology with the backbones of phone services and that stuff. So that's part of it.
And licensing agreements as well, is that?
License agreements are all included in the cost that we put forward for it.
Terrific. My other question is related to the community survey, and I'm guessing, Chief, that's for you, or, but I'm just, it seems like a significant amount of money, and I wonder if you could just explain in a little more detail the
Absolutely.
justification for that expense.
So the department's efforts to understand the level of public trust in our interactions, both as a city as a whole, as well as by geographic area, and to do so more frequently and recurring, so we can determine where areas of our strength, areas of weaknesses, change over time. The organization, particularly over the last 4 years, has been deeply engaged in outreach and engagement, which, with my appointment, I've expressed not just a commitment to, but an effort to better evaluate our impact. We know that in communities of color, that our levels of trust are not what they are in other portions of the city or in other demographics. The challenge that we have is that historically we've not been able to frequently survey and touch individuals through contacts of various methods because of a lack of funding. While we have requested it through traditional city budget resources, and we have periodically been able to every so many years, this is an effort to earmark so we can actually deliver. I think it's important that as we go out and as our officers are investing literally tens of thousands of hours in community meetings, roll calls on the street, various outreach and engagement, town halls, forums. What is the measure back, and what can we do to better understand that our message is being received, and that we're making a change over time, incrementally. And this is unique. I'm hopeful that for elected officials, the City Council, to find favor with this, as the department this is a substantial realignment of what other activities this account would normally provide for. There are, as you indicated, there are a number of ongoing technology requirements, cellular phones, various other software licensing, as addition to travel and training that has been borne by this account. This account is fixed at $1.5 million a year, has been so since 1998, I believe. And so earmarking this set aside is strategic in that we did not have this funded this year in this current fiscal year, and I'm hopeful that this is going to allow us to move forward on a multimodal. This will not just be a telephone survey. Chief Malinowski is charged with this design and is working with and reviewing how this survey instrument will be crafted, so that it is what I'll use the term multimodal, meaning it'll have a number of different strategies so that we can evaluate those that will answer a landline, those that will answer a cell phone, those that will answer through perhaps mailers, outreach activities at a divisional level, so we can better peg where we're at with approval, and also potentially identify areas of strategies that we need to adjust.
Very good, thank you. I don't have any.
Okay. Do we have any public comments?
Yeah, I had a couple.
Oh, I'm sorry.
A couple.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
First, just staying with the chief for a second on the about the survey. The one, is it being designed entirely in-house by Chief Malinowski, or is there an outside? Sometimes you engage a firm
Yes.
that is in the business of conducting surveys.
So we're taking outside input as well. For instance, the last survey was done by a Washington D.C. firm through the JJS.
Yeah,
I think it's the JJS, which are conducting a number of research projects with us, and has Dr. Craig Uchida, and has understandings of surveys and community surveys that are done by the industry that's out there. So we're taking input from that, while we're also researching a survey instrument that's been used in Chicago and in New York, Elucid. And then I've also challenged that the major city chiefs and IACP, working with the Police Foundation, has identified additional survey methodologies that they're using and offering to many other agencies across the country. So I've challenged and tasked them. This is part of the strategic planning group with Captain John Pinto. That is in design, and timeline for this is the design of it within the next 30 to 45 days, in anticipation of the council approving this expenditure, which will allow us to then move forward in the second quarter to summertime, where we'd execute. I would welcome an opportunity to come back with staff and have them visit the design of this. This was a conversation about 7 months ago with the commission and a number of community interests as to what our last survey design was and whether it was sufficient, and some concern when Elucid was mentioned as a cellular base, that by the ACLU and others, that there's biases. We acknowledge that each of these survey instruments have strengths and weaknesses, and that's why I believe that the best means forward will be to design a compilation of devices so as to try to balance out strengths of one particular device versus another, so we can have a better understanding. What will be key to this is us doing this on an ongoing and recurring basis. These snapshots in times are heavily influenced by local and national events, and can sway markers, and we can become distracted, if you will, without having a consistent basis in which to look and evaluate, ask, and interpret, and then go back at again.
So we'll have an opportunity to understand a little bit more about the design of the survey, but also presumably the outcome whenever that.
Well, two aspects of that. First of all, we stand ready to, at the invitation of the commission, to agendize this for its discussion as to its makeup, and then certainly the results that are obtained. I intend to not just visit with the commission as the head of this department, but with our communities. They all of them. This will be a very public matter, much as our internal survey was. We need to be very vocal and transparent with what the results are.
Excellent, excellent. And my other question, which I should have probably jumped in while Commissioner Decker was asking just more broadly about the process. The report indicates that it was the 17-18 budget that included the $1.5 million allocation. So from just a procedural or process standpoint, in terms of the approval that's going to be sought now when this expenditure plan is transmitted to the council, is that that approval will be given in connection with the current year budget and not in connection with the 18-19 budget year proposal?
So this particular SPA 31 has been delayed, so it is part of the 17-18 budget, but we have 3 years to spend the funds. So it will go on its own path. I mean, it could end up lining up with the mayor's budget, but we anticipate in our conversations with the CAO that this should be considered by the Public Safety Committee and Budget and Finance Committee sooner. So it sort of is on its own track.
And is it an annual process?
It is an annual process,
right.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just clarify, it was delayed at my input relative to carving out, identifying the means of which we could achieve this community survey.
Do we have any public comments on 2A?
We have Mr. Herman and Gina DiPietro.
Okay.
You want to know about public trust? Do you really want to know about public trust? There is no public trust. Why can't this commission with officers have transparency? Because they have something to hide. The same way City Hall and those who run the budget without the legislative approval of we, the people, take advantage of money laundering, as I call it. A criminal activity to disrespect law and order, to provide adequate monies, to provide officers with adequate updated equipment. And that's how the budget is affected. How many public meetings have I, Spindler, Eric Previn, and multiple other people, including City Watch, Daniel Gus, have sat in on these budget meetings and have been told to shut up? That's transparency? Is that public trust? You people in the public, you attend these meetings and you try to address our concerns of public trust. And let me see for the record if you do not encounter a hostile situation of effective communication, like I and many other speakers who attend these meetings timely, daily, because it's our job and duty. Section 6085, 42 USC.
Next speaker, please.
Gina DiPietro.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I'm Gina DiPietro, and last week I was here about the seized assets funds being used for the community survey. Those funds can be so tricky because oftentimes those funds are seized in multi-agency task forces. And when you do that, how the money is dispensed from the beginning can be especially tricky. Now, I'm super optimistic that this survey will serve a purpose, an excellent purpose for the city of Los Angeles. I'm hoping that we will gather information about how we can improve trust. I'm also hoping that we can gather information on some really basic facts, like how long does it take after you dial 911 to get a dispatcher on the phone? I have had to dial 911 in the last year, and it has taken several minutes. And the whole time I'm on the phone going, what if my house is on fire? What if I'm being held at gunpoint? What if? What if? These times are too long. And I think that having more police officers, if we add to the 10,000 on the force, I think it would be an excellent idea. So my hope is that when we do this survey, we are looking at multiple basic ideas so we can look at these crime statistics. I actually emailed Dr. Sean Malinowski. I'm hoping I could help as just a local citizen, or I would just really like this survey to really function, to really help the LAPD. It has the chance to do that. I think you can expand beyond the kind of ideas that you're looking at now. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we have no other comment cards on this item, sir.
Okay, we have a motion for approval of item number 2A, please. Second? All in favor? Aye. No one's opposed. That's 4-0. On item number 2B, I have one, just a question. The memorandum of agreement is by and between LAPD through the Board of Police Commissioners and the World Airport Police Department acting through its Board of Airport Commissioners. And the signature line doesn't show the Board of Airport Commissioners. Am I off here? It didn't look like the parties, it looked like one more signature would be required. Yeah, I got it.
Commissioner, I assume you're referring to page 7?
Yeah, it says.
And
yeah.
I don't know, perhaps Dr. Jablonski may be able to answer this. It may be procedural. I note that the Deputy Executive Director for Los Angeles World Airport, their Chief of Police, and their CEO.
I saw that, yeah.
So it
I
may
don't
be a
mind. I'm just saying
discretion.
that if you want to have an agreement that's really an agreement, you might want to double check that it doesn't need that additional signature. Point of information.
Good morning. Dr. Kevin Jablonski, Chief Psychologist, Commanding
Morning,
Officer
Kevin.
at
Thank you,
Behavioral
sir.
Sciences. I'm sorry, Mr. President, I don't know the answer
Okay.
to that question.
You'll be able to, you want an agreement that's an agreement.
Yes.
So if I would just add, though, that this has been an MOA that's been reviewed by the city attorney for
Yeah.
form and met their approval. If we could,
I'm going to sign it,
okay.
pending the vote. Put that pen down. I didn't date it. Okay. Any other questions? Do we have any public comments on this item?
We have Mr. Herman.
Mr. Herman?
Well, it's apparent we need a shutdown. Why do we need a shutdown at LAX? Well, we don't have safety enforcement. We lack. And why is that? Why is that? Well, the purpose behind that is what Trump has always said. Society's become a shithole with political corruption, and we need to stop it.
Off topic?
What do you mean I'm off topic?
You aren't even close to the top.
This is dealing with the budget.
No, this has to do with
For the
behavioral-
department's
behavioral
report
sciences section.
for December 11th, Mr. Soboroff.
No.
This deals with the police department at the world airports. Are not LAPD serving at the world airport?
This is about contract regarding behavioral science services.
Okay, and the only science of education people get is none. We see it over and over. What is the science behind educating people to learn something that they're not applying? That's exactly what Trump has said.
Speaker's off topic, Mr. President.
Okay, let's have a motion for approval of item number 2B.
Am I done, sir?
Yes, sir.
I have 28 seconds for the record.
Motion for approval of 2B. I'll move 2B. Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, let's go to, thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin. 2C is the wireless camera system contract, the extension. No questions? Okay, any public comments on 2C?
We have Mr. Herman.
Mr. Herman? This is 2C?
Yes.
So what do we know about cameras? We know that cameras can be sabotaged, tampered, and destroyed. And that's criminal. When you destroy evidence that pertains to our public trust in this commission and the use of cameras in which we, under the Brown Act, the legislative body, on this budget, had never asked for. Because if we asked for it, it would be applied. Instead, abuse of local entities like Kamala Cunt Harris.
Mr. President, speaker's off
Disrupt
topic.
Off topic. Okay, that's.
Our issues in government.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 2C. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, let's go to the report of the chief. Good morning, chief.
Good morning. So, Commissioners, while we've been here, it's my understanding there's been a tentative announcement or tentative agreement reached between UTLA and the LA Unified School District. So I want to preface my remarks in the sense of this significant event so this last week that to include today is that has been tentatively announced. The deployments over this last week, I'm encouraged because the vast majority of actions of everybody involved has been very responsible. We've had some isolated complaints last week of some instances of a few schools of blocking of access by strikers. A couple of those instances did escalate to a physical contact between a person trying to leave or enter a school in a vehicle and an individual on the strike line. Fortunately, there wasn't any serious injuries. We have, working with LA Unified School District Police, we were on scene on each of those to conduct an investigation and will continue those investigations as evidence exists of a criminal act versus an accident or some type of inadvertent contact. This last week we also expanded the cadre of our labor relations section. It's a cadre of personnel that are relatively small that have ongoing conversations with all the bargaining units and as well as management across the city of our size. And we adopted a strategy, as we did during the grocery strike, of marshaling additional senior lead officers that were brought in, and additional training was provided so that we could bolster the membership of that cadre. They are particularly helpful in these type of engagements where in plainclothes business attire they can encourage peaceful expression and that the interplay between the school district personnel and management, as well as those members that are on strike, is done in a responsible way. Again, we saw over the weekend ongoing negotiations, and I'm hopeful today that the tentative agreement will be, as it's presented to the UTLA membership, that a decision will be made, and then in which case we'll obviously adjust our posture. This week we did modify, following our experience last week of the elementary schools. As a reminder, we were at 369 schools at least twice a day. We did modify that posture this week and downsize that response and put on a rotational basis elementary schools, particularly in the San Fernando Valley, so that teams would move from one to another, because we had a number of sites that in the first days of the strike saw actually no, so did not warrant our continued presence. So I'm thankful for Chief Arcos and the OO team, as well as the Unified Command, in remaining flexible as it went about ensuring the safety of everyone involved in this action. This last week, we also had a town hall meeting that Councilman Krikorian hosted in the Valley Village area in Van Nuys, North Hollywood. It was well attended. I want to thank Secretary General Mark Smith, who was there, as well as a couple members of his staff. We were there, spent a couple hours talking about the state of public safety here in the San Fernando Valley, as well as overall the city, and the direction of the department, as well as city government. Challenges that were recurring was the challenges involving this humanitarian crisis of homelessness, and what the department's work was in that realm, as well as our need to see expanded services, in the hopes that in this last year, the movements that have been made with added services, added outreach workers, that those are going to be, they're going to continue to amplify, and which will allow the department to take a lesser and lesser role in such a huge crisis. We had a graduation on Friday. It was a well attended. It was inside because of the recent rains. 51 were added to our ranks, and then over the weekend, I was happy to attend the Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas's 27th Empowerment Congress, as well as yesterday being joined by Commissioner Dale Bonner with the Martin Luther King Parade, in which, again, a very festive and positive and uplifting occasion of celebration of a man and a great legacy. The last matter of significance was on Sunday, was the start of a new deployment period in which the organization, we shifted 200 positions back to geographic areas. This is the latest leg of our reorganization that will allow increased deployments at the area level. 2018 saw an increase of 57,000 additional radio calls than the year before. We closed out 2018 with over 1 million calls for service. That number was about 850,000 in 2012. This shift of and reorganization of these some 200 positions now will now total 550 positions that have been shifted over the last 2 years in an effort to, again, staff and bolster our field presence first. It has impacted our specialized commands, and there are a number of investigative entities today that, with these shifting, we're having to continue to reprioritize the tenor of those investigations. At the end of this month, we'll have a year-end crime report in which I anticipate making additional announcements relative to further changes within deployment, but particularly report writing practices of the organization, as we attempt to provide officers more time to have public engagement and public dialogue versus some of the administrative or sometimes bureaucratic reports that we often find ourselves in as a matter of tradition or history, legacy, if you will, that we continue to examine. Those examinations are really sprung from survey results that our officers participated in, as well as the innovation groups that they supplied ample suggestions as to how to improve their workload and improve public safety. Moving over to crime, as I said last week, it is very early in the first 19 days of the year to talk about statistics, other than to say that we are encouraged because we are generally down in the frequency. Well, not generally down, we are down in each of the categories of Part 1 crime. We have fewer shooting victims, 14 as of last Saturday. We're down two fewer homicides. Again, it's too soon to really start talking percentages, but the overall trend is favorable, and I'm encouraged. For officer-involved shootings this last week, we had none. So in the first 22 days of the year, the department has 0 officer-involved shootings. Last year at this time, we had 3, with 2 of them being fatal, and our 4-year average is just over 3. And moving over to our traffic statistics, again, early, pretty much on matching last year's levels in regards to our injuries, fatalities, and overall traffic collision rates. Our personnel are now at 10,080. This is 47 additional officers above our table of organization or our authorized strength. However, based on our hiring plan, where today there are 254 recruits in the academy in concert with anticipated retirements and separations, I anticipate that number to fall back down to our staffed, our budgeted rate within the next 30 days, given the ebb and flow of retirements and the start of the new year. Civilian personnel on payroll number 3,015. We have 387 reserve officers and 1,428 cadets. And that concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions the commission might have.
Any questions of the chief by the commissioners?
No questions. I did have one brief comment relative. The chief mentioned that we had an opportunity to attend the Martin Luther King Day Parade yesterday, which was well attended and a very successful event. One thing that I would note that I was struck by was the number of people who approached the chief throughout the day, not really to introduce themselves, but to follow up on a conversation that the chief may have started, or to thank the chief for having been accessible and available to the community. So I just wanted to say, to me, that was reflective of the commitment and the proactive steps that you've been taking to invest in the relationships in that community. And I would just encourage you to continue that effort and demonstrating that leadership and building those relationships, which are so important to the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comments on the chief's report?
Yes, sir. We have 4.
Oh, okay.
We have Mr. Herman, Red Chief Hunt, Yvonne Michelle Autry, and Gina Viola.
Okay.
You see how the report reflects transparency? Do you understand what's happening in our communities and the quality of life? It's at its lowest. And despite the show by charade of misleads, untruths, this is the reason why we have to shut things down. We need to take back America and shut things down so that we can educate those in our community to understand that we're here to do a fantastic job of public service and not be incompetent, incoherent like Richard T. Fink.
Morning, Mr. Hunt.
Good morning, Red Chief Hunt, for the record. Happy New Year to all of you guys if I haven't said it yet. Truly the numbers are down, but I wonder for how long. And the reason why I say that, with 800,000 people out of work across the United States of America, I think the Pope said it best that we're not trying to build walls, we're trying to build bridges. But if you don't get a paycheck for 2 or 3 months, it's hard to keep on building a bridge with no money. What I really want to say is that Chief Moore, you've done a good job so far with the numbers and things like that. There was only one other guy that was really good with numbers in the LA Police Department's history, and that was Bratton. He could make the federal consent decree go away and not even be here in Los Angeles, which was amazing. Say that to say this: keep doing a good job, but remember that communication is your best policy. Without communication to the small people, without communication to the middle class people, without communication to the rich people, you have nothing. And I guess this is one of the reasons why people haven't said get rid of you yet. 6 months, I'm still undecided how I feel and things like that. And that's an honest opinion, but I can't say anything bad because licensed professional people don't say anything bad about people. So keep up the good work and have a good year. And I need to speak with you probably either Thursday or Friday.
Thank you, sir.
Yvonne Michelle Autry.
Yes, Happy New Year. Hopefully this will be a better year. I still need to speak against the incrimination, the demonization, reverse of culpability, and falsely accusing victims of crime, so that this will be you're not incriminating the victim, whether it is a woman, a black person, a homeless person, in the continual sacrificial ritual executions, most recently Walgreens, 24-Hour Fitness, Torrance. And there was also a Hispanic man a few months ago who was sleeping. So I see no probable cause and no reasonable suspicion. Many times the videos and reports have been withheld, as in the case of Waukesha Wilson as a black woman, knowing that we are entrapped as a targeted individual. Our neighbors are given false information to justify sexual harassment, stalking. Many of times I believe those perpetrators have been commissioned and are under the order of whether it's Secret Service, Homeland Security, CIA, Blackwater, counterintelligence, whatever that agency is. So again, no government cover-ups, because you all complicitous because of the agency and because of the positions that you hold, and because I come here and we make you aware of the stalking of black women, the sexual harassment of black women, the incrimination, a reversal of culpability. So when the police murder a black woman or a black man, it is the police officer that should be held accountable, prosecuted, and penalized. We identify them. Even when you fail to reveal, or submit the or give the videos. So we need to have that righteousness and that change in 2019. No government cover-ups. Okay, stop incriminating the victim. Stop hiding the evidence. Videos are altered every day. I was a victim of a verbal assault and practical assault on my person, and the police officers reversed.
Next speaker, please.
We have two more, sir, that were late.
No.
Jamie Garcia and Adam Smith.
The two that were late we'll just put into public comment. But was this the end of? Was this the end of? Was this the end of?
It's a chief report.
And that's it for chief report?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go to public comment. No, you can go right to public comment right now. You can do whatever you want in public comment. Go ahead. Public comment. You can.
How do I respond to his comments if I don't know what the hell he's going to say?
Okay, so go ahead. No, this is on public comment.
No, sober office isn't fair.
You were in on time. Okay, you're fine. Okay, you're fine.
Gina Viola was on time, sir.
Okay. Was there anybody else that was on time?
Well, why would you let her speak? I put my card in before her.
The late card for Adam Smith is for general comment. It's not for the chief.
Yeah, right. Right.
Say something.
Are we going to go on or not? Let's go.
I'm glad you addressed
Thank you.
the school issue this week and that you reduced your presence at some of the schools because it wasn't necessary. I can only imagine that you have some influence and some say in this whole bargaining position with the schools. So what I would like to recommend is that you give your budget for LA School Police back to the teachers union, to LAUSD, so that they have monies to properly staff positions that they need at school. They don't need to be criminalized in school. They don't need to be treated like criminals at school. A 24-hour police presence at my school sends the wrong message. My kids go to a small school in the valley, Valley High. There are 2 schools on that campus. The high school has less than 500 students. My school has less than 300 students. Why do we need a full-time police person for that? The majority of that school, East Valley High, or a good portion of that school, is actually special needs. That money would be much better spent on counselors, support staff, psychologists, social workers. So I can only imagine that you have some say in this whole bargaining, and you have a big budget that goes to police and schools. That needs to stop. That part of the budget needs to go to the support staff so that we're not out on the line striking every 10 years so that the teachers can get, 6% increase in raise, and we can still see 50 kids in a classroom. This isn't working. Yet your budget goes up and up and up to police these kids. Criminalizing these kids is not working. It's not doing anything. It hasn't prevented anything at any campus that I can see. And I've been in public school now for 7 years. So I'd like you to give that money back.
Ms. Garcia, your card was on time. I was just notified, so go ahead. This is on report of Chief of Police.
I just want to say that you all have to realize how ridiculous it is that if we don't know what he's going to say, how do we respond to it? I mean, you are supposed to advocate for us, and I don't think my mic is on. So I don't, get it. Mike? It's so backwards and asinine, and if you don't stand up for us...
Hold on. You can start a time over. Go ahead.
So, you all are supposed to advocate for us. We're supposed to understand what he is going to report. And if you don't let us hear it, how do we respond? And I know that you care more about order and you care more about having your orderly meeting, but we have to have understanding of what he's saying. If I don't know what he's going to say, how do I respond? And then you will cut me off if I'm off topic. You all are intelligent people, or at least I want to assume that you are. So advocate for us or don't. And then if you're not going to, get off the commission because you're worthless. But what I wanted to address was the comment about Martin Luther King. And I wanted to remind this commission of how he was anti-war. And that led to his ultimate murder. Because that's where he finally stepped forward and kept saying, this is about something bigger. And I want to remind the commission what LAPD stands for. That PredPol, predictive policing, came from the battlefields of the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. They brought that home to our communities to experiment on black and brown communities, to pilot it in black and brown communities. Laser is experimented in black and brown communities. So if you're going to speak about Martin Luther King, then you need to think about the programs you're running, the algorithms you're running, what you're creating, where they come from. We know about Jeff Brantingham. We know about the Army, the Air Force, all those grants that he receives to not only experiment overseas, but then to bring that home. So you have no right to speak about Martin Luther King because he was against everything you're doing to us. Everything. So remember that. Remember what history is, because you seem to have completely forgotten it or erased it from your minds, or you have no idea what your law enforcement is doing. So, it's just not okay for you to do that. It's not okay for you to say it was a joyous occasion, because people are here right now standing against the fact that you're persecuting people for raising their voices up against police violence. What Martin Luther King stood for, what they got beaten for by law enforcement. And regardless, that is your history. Whether you want to erase it, whether you want to ignore it, whether you want to say, oh, I'm better, that is your history. And that is why we're calling for abolition. That's why we will stand for nothing less than abolition. So we don't want your experimentations. We don't want your algorithms. We don't want your...
Okay, let's go to public comment now.
We have 23 public comment cards.
Okay.
We have Mr. Herman, followed by Yosef Azriel, Jacqueline Richardson, and the Red Chief.
Okay.
Wow, what a tide and what a change. What a tide and a change. And why do I say that? Because we brought the untruths of what City Hall is all about. Corruption. And how do we know that? Because for the record, the FBI is now investigating Department of Public Works. But who's the co-founder of corruption in LA? Our mayor, Eric Garcetti. Eric Garcetti has his ass in all our business, we the people. And we have no say-so under the Brown Act. Pull up your fucking bullshit Rule 77. It needs to stop. Stop violating our civil rights and our actions to take place in what we find, what we like, and what we agree upon, not what you decide. We are the legislative body. We are the voice. So if you don't got a clear picture of that, maybe on this motion signed by the defrauded Jose Huizar in my hand here, stating motion, I move pursuant to Rule 77 on council to adopt the following changes on rules of the Los Angeles City Council. No, fuck you. You're not going to censor us and find what you find appropriate in our conduct of intensifiers. You brought it upon us to come in here and use intensifiers. If I were at work, if I had a home, if I wasn't fucking homeless, I'd probably be doing better. Instead, you bring on the stress, you allow that fucking developer up there to censor me. Fuck you. 42 U.S.C. 1983, ADA prohibits discrimination, Mr. fucking Sobroff and your faggot son.
Yosef Azriel.
Good morning, Commissioners, Chief Moore. My name is Yusuf Azriel. I'm a 20-year USC North University Park student. I have a letter that I would like the officers to personally give to Chief Moore because its content is highly confidential, and I'm afraid the press would sideswipe you with some heavy questions. We're having problems with the USC security private police force, university private police force in regards to how they patrol off campus. My neighbors and I feel that USC grants preferential treatment towards their students over year-round residents like myself. I personally met with Chief Thomas, former LAPD, retired, and it's been like two years, and the status quo is still continuing in terms of them inabilities to adequately control the noise that's occurring off campus. So what we're seeing is that when we call USC DPS out repeatedly to a property that's usually a secondary fraternity sorority, USC goes out 2 or 3 times in the night before they shut down the party. And when we do call LAP dispatch, when the officers do show up, it's deferred over to DPS to handle. The problem with DPS is that they do not have a long-term solution to rectify the problems, and something needs to be done. I'm concerned about the MOU, the current MOU or the future draft MOU and AB 2361, how that's going to affect the community. So if I can meet with somebody from command staff, the letter that I dropped off has my contact information. It's pretty detailed, and the allegations are very serious. And I just hope that the police commissioner and the chief and his staff can help us sort through this, because USC, DPS, and I say this with all sincerity, are not good neighbors. They're engaging in shady policing practices, and these are my allegations. Thank you.
Next speaker.
So, sir, if you would meet with Lieutenant Brian Raffish, he will arrange a meeting. Sir, up here. If you'll meet with Lieutenant Brian Raffish, he will set up a meeting with Southwest Area Captain Leland Sands.
How many late cards were there for public comment?
About 12, sir.
Okay. we're going to allow those cards, but there will be no more cards taken after now? Oh, you got to turn it in. Go ahead. We'll take it.
The next speaker, Jacqueline
Okay,
Richardson.
so that's it. There will be no more cards after this.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Black people, black men are not generally in the workforce right now. I don't know the statistics. The reasons for that, it's not because they're black or we're black. There are little bitty problems that we're having that have not been addressed, such as not eating. If men are smart enough to eat their breakfast and other meals, get to work on time every day, tell the truth, and they don't steal and get job training, and they keep their hands off women, then they're smart enough to work every day. This doesn't apply to every black man. There are some go-getters that do eat their breakfast, but some, they don't do that, and their work suffers. They're not as efficient as they should be. It affects their memory, and it affects their ability. Like one man said, don't work hard, work smart. It affects your ability to work smart. In other words, you're working and you're working continually, but you're working so that you conserve your energy and you're effective and efficient and proper in what you do. Your work is proper and it's good, solid work. There are a lot of little problems that are keeping us from the workforce. This is just one problem, not eating properly, not having enough energy to get that work done. I've seen black men suffer from hunger tremors or not eating their work, and then they get too tired. They want to work, but they just don't have the energy to carry through. And when we start solving these little problems, we'll be more in the workforce. And it's not because we're black, it's because of these little problems that need to be resolved.
Next speaker.
The Red Chief, followed by Jamie Garcia and Gina Viola.
Good morning. Good morning to Black Lives Matter. Thank you guys for showing up. Listen, there was a big problem outside. There's a big long line of people out there, and there's not enough help out front. I think everybody deserves the right to speak. I mean, and I requested with this lieutenant back here that everybody gets in and be able to speak. So just for the record, there is a long line of people out there, and they were here, but they just can't get in because there's not enough help up front. I did request that. And good luck to Black Lives Matter. And with all due respect, please honor everybody's card. That's what the brown X says. Thank you, the Red Chief Hunt.
Thank you, sir.
Jamie Garcia.
Somebody check and see if there's still a line out there. Yeah.
So I wanted to raise this issue and kind of draw a timeline of what's happened in 2018 as regards of the advocacy of the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. In February, we had to sue LAPD because there was they basically ignored a PRA request that we had of Operation Laser. In May, we released a report about predictive policing. In July, we held probably the first national hearing of data-driven evidence-based policing. Out of that, the Inspector General was requested or instructed to produce an audit of data-driven policing. Now, this has not been released, which is to the benefit of us right now, because what we're requesting now is that there's a minimum two-week pre-release to the community who essentially advocated and worked extremely hard to bring this to the attention of the commission, which was very unaware of even the term data-driven policing, of the use of Palantir, of the creation of the records management system, and the monies that were going into expanding law enforcement in regards to and changing and shifting and increasing the power of LAPD in order for it to contain, control, and criminalize our communities. So we are requesting that there at least a minimum 2-week notice, because we have our own researchers, we have our own people that have been going through these public records requests, these documents that we have, doing our own research. And so we want to be able to present our analysis of this audit. And so I think because of the work and because what we have done and what the issues we've raised, I think we should be granted that at minimum. And that's a minimum thing that this commission can do for the community. So basically what I'm requesting right now is that there's at least one person, the Inspector General and some representative from the commission, especially the commission that has the subcommittee on data-driven policing, to meet with me after this and to discuss this being absolutely necessary for the community, since you are the advocates of the community.
The next speaker, Gina
So
Viola.
can I get a nod or something?
Yeah, thank you.
No, I'm not asking you, Soboroff. I'm not asking you.
Thank you.
Ms. Garcia,
Yes.
I stepped out, but Commissioner Goldsmith asked that I have you, again, ask what you were speaking about. I apologize.
So what we're basically requesting is a minimum of 2 weeks release of the audit to the community so that we can do our analysis on the audit and that we are able to respond to this audit in more than 2 minutes, that we should have at least minimum 20 minutes to be able to respond to you about what we think about the audit, because we've done there's extensive examples of how we have advocated, how we have researched, how we've actually are in a lawsuit with you currently in regards to these issues. Because we have raised this, and because we are very aware that the commission itself is very unaware of these programs and what is going on. So we need to do that education to the commission, that education to our own community, and that advocacy to show what we think about the Inspector General's audit.
Let me do this. Let me talk to the city attorney after the meeting. I believe I have your contact information. I'll reach out to you in the next day or so with a response to your question.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
When are we going to start addressing the racism in this room? When? Why is it Mr. Herman gets up and says things over and over and over again? I have yet to see him arrested at one of these meetings. I can tell you why. He doesn't have the right skin color for you for that. Over and over again, you have arrested people in this room for speaking out. Black people. When are you going to do something about that? If you can't control the racism in this room, what makes us believe you're controlling it out in our city, in our communities? You're not. You're absolutely not. I want to follow up on my offer about 1421. If you have nothing to hide, I am happy to provide you with ample staff to pull records for 1421. I own a temporary employment agency. I have a large pool of people at my ready to come work with you and help you pull records for 1421, since you went and said that this was an issue for you and a reason why you weren't going to be able to fulfill those requests. I'm going to close that gap for you. So I gave my name and number last week. I haven't heard from anybody, so I'm following up officially on that request. So I will make good on that. It will cost LAPD nothing. I have people who can do that for you. Inspector General, I want to echo Jamie Garcia's words today. You absolutely have to give us that report before you release it to the public. Absolutely, hands down. Stop LAPD Spying worked tirelessly, spent their own time, their own money, bringing this to you, alerting you all to something that's going on. They have a right to see that report before you release whatever you're going to release to the community. Thank you.
The next four speakers, Yvonne Michelle Autry, Mattel, Sheila Hines, and Melina Abdullah.
Yes, on the record, I'd like to, before the arming of the drones, go on the record speaking against the arming of the drones, because I know that they will only further be used to exterminate those that you are continuing to exterminate and incriminating, of course, the victims as we are being sacrificed, scapegoated, and exterminated. Also, bringing back the memory of the Strawberry murderer, the Grim Reaper, who in each police report of those women who were all labeled prostitutes and no human involved as black women, as a black woman who has been continually labeled as such, prostitute, heroin addict, bipolar, manic depressive, schizophrenic, psychotic, paranoid, delusional. Again, in these continued covered up human experimentation, subjugating, exploiting, sexual exploitation of black women, and I know of some Korean and a few white women as well, in the CIA torture chambers and the sex slavery, those cover-ups. You're responsible because many of your agents are involved, and I believe that the reason that you had taken so long, or still to this date have not examined the DNA packets, is because you would find that many of your agents were involved in those femicides. Jeffrey Dahmer, who was a cannibal, okay, and a homosexual, murdering black men and Filipino men after he had eaten them. And that, even though that was not LAPD, that is the spirit, again, of cover-up of this evil, wicked, sacrificial ritual. The femicides are part of that. Cleaning up the streets as a black woman, even covered. Okay, I'm not the seductress. I'm not, you know, the tease and the flirt that a lot of these men have been told that I am, just to justify their ritual extermination, the femicide, and the sacrifice of their God. Many, again, the Hispanic men are told upon entering this country what a black woman is, how she's been mistreated and broken down. I can hear them in Spanish boasting. So you stop this.
Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Mateo.
Next speaker, please. Sir.
So I was at the Kingdom Parade yesterday, and so I didn't really think it was a bad idea that you guys were there because you were really entertaining. I actually encountered the sheriff, and I was actually, you know, walked up to the car. I was walking down with them, you know, hey, is Villanueva in there? And they were waving at the people, and I'm like, don't wave at them. They're waving at you today, but they'll be shooting at you tomorrow. And I followed them all the way down to the end. And then I turned around and I was like, oh my God, there's Chief Moore and the police. And it was great because they couldn't go anywhere. And I came right up to you, and I know you looked at me. And I was like, drop the drop program or resign. Give the $1.27 million back or resign. Right? And then I went down your little, all the police, you know, talking about Blue Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, Blue Lives Murder, Blue Lives Murder, Blue Lives Murder, all the way down, even to your cadets. I was like, you want to be a killer cop? You want to be a killer cop? You want to kill your own people? Why, you know, why are you doing that? Why do you want to change your career, change your career goals? You know, why don't you think about that when you lay your head on the pillow tonight, right? And then I looked, and it was the city council, right? A big old float coming around. Herb Weston was up on there, and I was like, how's the FBI investigation going? You know, you can walk right up to the floats. I mean, you can touch them. I was like, how's the FBI investigation going? You know? So I had a great time. And then, seriously, because my family was coming, and so I knew. And then I saw Mike Fuhrer, and I was like, oh, he's coming around in a fancy car. And I walked right up to him, and I was like, drop the charges against Melina Abdullah. Drop the charges against Melina Abdullah. I did it. I mean, it was wonderful. And then my family came.
Next speaker, please. Thank you, sir.
Sheila Hines.
Waukesha Wilson. Waukesha Wilson. Waukesha Wilson. Ashe. You guys, it's crazy because clearly on my card it says Lisa. You guys are so stuck on Sheila, which is not a problem.
It says Sheila.
That's the wrong card then. That's one you've been having. It's LISA. But anyway, I'm not going to throw anything today. But I just wanted to remind you guys, March 27, it'll be 3 years. You guys killed my baby, Waukesha Wilson. I'm refreshing you guys' memory. She was incarcerated by you guys. She was there a day and a half. That half a day she was there, it wasn't even a half a day because it was that morning, 7:45 a.m., March 27th, Resurrection Sunday. She called me and we spoke for 15 minutes. She told me she was going to call me back. She wanted to wish her aunt, Sheila Hines Brim happy birthday, and she wanted to speak with her son and tell the family happy Resurrection Day. I said, okay. She said, make sure you have Jamil there, Mom, because I want to talk to him. I said, okay. I held my phone in my hand all day, waiting for her to call. The call never came through. I just shook it off and said maybe she couldn't get to the phone. Okay, the next day came. She never called. I said, okay, I'm going to wait. She go to court Tuesday, so I came to court. From the time the doors opened, I walked in. I stayed till they closed. But in between then, I'm going from floor to floor trying to find out why she wasn't on the docket. Couldn't nobody tell me anything. All along, they knew she was dead, had been killed. So I left. After closing, I left. I started calling. Time I walked out the building, I started calling the police stations, and they was telling me they didn't have her. They didn't. Then some said they didn't know where she was. They was, you don't know where she is. You're trying to locate her. What kind of sense does that make? That was wrong right there. How do a police station that incarcerates somebody, arrest someone, don't know where they are? Don't have no location on them. But that was a lie because she was dead. They didn't want to tell me. They were trying to get their story together. Then, when I do find out, 3 days later, an officer tells me that the watch commander wants to speak with me. And can I give him my callback information, and he will call me back. Okay, I do that. But I'm asking him, why do the commander need to speak with me? Where's my baby? What's wrong? Ma'am, I can't tell you anything. You just need to wait for the commander to call you back. Okay, I do that. Mind you, he had called me back in an hour and a half. He don't call back, it's 4 hours. Then passed, I called them back. They still can't tell me anything. I still don't speak to the commander. I have to wait another 2 hours for him to call me back, but that 2 hours, he never called back. I called them back again. He gets on the phone, and he tells me that he's giving me a number, and when I call, ask for investigations. I don't have to ask for nobody because the person on the other end of the phone, he answered coroner's office. He answered coroner's office, and I knew. But I already knew something was wrong because all the lies, and they didn't know where she was, and when I'm calling, the operator's telling me all they see is zeros behind her name. How do you do that to a person? How? What if it was your child you were looking for? It's been 3 years without my baby, my only child. And it hurts today like it did March 27th. "21 minutes of the tape is missing. Who erased it? Why did they erase it? How could they let that happen? How could you let that happen? If it was your child, wouldn't you want to know everything that happened? Everything. My heart breaks every day when I come in here. I just fill up immediately with rage. With rage. My baby didn't kill herself. They told me she was found hanging from the phone booth. Then a week later, they said she was found in the middle of the floor. And and 21 minutes of the tape missing. Nothing is adding up. I'm asking you guys, just think if this was your child. Reopen this case, investigate. And there's one more thing. Officer Brianna Braden, she was fired. No one told me that. I had to find that out from Channel 4 news investigator. Why was she fired? Why was it on a hush-hush? I think I deserve that much to know that someone was fired due to my daughter's death.
That's right.
It's something there that you guys don't want me to know. You don't want nobody to know. I'm asking you guys, find it, search your heart, find it in your heart. Reopen this case, because there's a lot of things that's not right in it.
Right.
There's a lot of things that's not right in this case. The main one is, why didn't they tell me? Why couldn't they tell me when I first called? Why couldn't they tell me at court? Why did they lie to me, telling me they didn't know where she was? Clearly, they knew she was dead. You guys, they knew. And you are the overseers. I'm a mother. I'll always be her mother. And I'm going to fight till I don't have no more in me. I'm going to keep trying to find out what happened to my baby, because she didn't kill herself. She did not kill herself. That's right. Brianna Braden and the other officers, they all were in on it together. But Brianna Braden, she was the main one. She was the one my daughter had the altercation with. After the altercation, she was found dead. Brianna Braden moved my daughter from one cell to another cell, an isolated cell, where she didn't have permission to even do that. See, none of that adds up. She was wrong for doing that, because she has to get authorization to move her from one cell to another cell. She didn't have any of that. I'm asking you guys, search your hearts. Find it in your hearts to just reopen this case. Find out what happened to my baby, because if it was your child, you guys would be feeling just like I am. But something would be did about it. That's the difference.
That's right.
That's the difference. February 4th, my baby will be 39. She'll be 39. Her son, she has one son. He made 16 November 14th of last year. If we don't do something now, do the right thing now, today, when are we going to do the right thing?
Right.
When is it going to happen? When are we going to reach the mountaintop, like Martin Luther King said? When are we going to do that? My baby mattered to me. Her life mattered to me. Her life matters today. I love my baby. I miss her dearly. Find it in your hearts to open this case, reopen this case.
Markeisha Wilson! Markeisha Wilson! Markeisha Wilson!
Thank you. The next four speakers, please. Melina Abdullah.
Please don't disrupt the meeting. You have a chance to talk in public comment. If you disrupt the meeting, I'm going to ask you to leave. Next speaker, please. Next speaker.
The next speaker, Melina Abdullah, followed by Greg Akili, then Dewey Abdullah, and Adam Smith.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
The next four speakers, Melina Abdullah, Greg Akili, then Dewey Abdullah, and Adam Smith.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Shirley Haynes. My son, Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, he was murdered by Torrance Police Department December the 9th, 2018, as he slept in the vehicle. They haven't gave me no information on why they killed my son. Coroner called me as well and told me, Charlene, do you have a son with your name tattooed on his face? I said, yeah, what's going on? What's going on? Well, I have your son in the coroner's office. What? So I said, couldn't I come down there and verify if that's my son or not? Oh, no, you can't come down. So I had to wait till the lady who called me come back to work the following day to give me more information on my son. So I go to Torrance Police Department and say, well, what's going on? What happened? Oh, you got to wait for the coroner to come back to give you that information. What? Nobody give me no information on why you murdered my child? So I'm like, wait a minute. What do I do? When the officers kill your son, they don't get no information. But if somebody else was to kill him, you get all the information. It's on the news, everything. They won't give you anything. So I'm like, what? So I have to bury my son instead of celebrating with him on Christmas. And I'm like, something has to change, guys. Something really has to change. The officers just cannot use excessive force and kill somebody. It seems like they pick and choose if they're going to kill you or not. And it shouldn't be like that, guys. It shouldn't be like that. It should have been other forces, other ways for him to come and approach my son instead of kill him. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Say his name! Christopher Mitchell! Say his name! Christopher Mitchell!
The next speaker, Melina Abdullah.
So we know that you have been complicit in charging black protesters with crimes when we come here to uplift the names and the stories of the people who your officers kill. When we say Waukesha Wilson, when we say Carnell Snell, when we say Kenny Watkins, we are criminalized, but your officers who kill them are the criminals, right? We know that this is an attempt to criminalize black protest. We know that the reason that I'm facing 8 charges right now is because of your work in trying to criminalize black protest. We know that it was the criminalization of black protest that got Baba Akili locked out of the meetings for over a year. We know it's the criminalization of black protest that had General Jeff fighting charges for simply walking out the wrong door. We know what you're up to, but let me tell you something. When you do that, it doesn't kill our protests.
That's right.
This room is full. So maybe you would want to think of different tactics, because we going to keep coming, yeah?
Yeah.
We going to keep coming?
Yeah.
So let me tell you, since you think it was fit for you all to be riding in a Martin Luther King Day parade, Dale Bonner, right? Since you think that was a good idea. Dr. King said, a nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual doom. Yes. This city spends more money on police militarism than it does on programs of social uplift. You are approaching spiritual doom. So unless you are going to really honor Dr. King's legacy, you shouldn't ride in no more King Day parades. You shouldn't even utter his name. you shouldn't even utter his name. Because when you do,
Next speaker, please.
Greg Akili.
Mr. Akili. Next speaker, please. You can start the clock. You can start the clock, please.
I have been gone for a year. When I left, when I spoke, I turned my back on them because they have long turned their back on us. I'm glad to be back. I noticed some changes. Beck is gone. I noticed some other changes. But I noticed this, that they still rubber stamp what the police does. That they are not their eyes and ears, but you are the eyes and ears of the people. I want to thank Paula and Melina and Adam and LAPD Spine for being here on a regular basis to make sure that our eyes and ears and our voices were heard. I want to make sure that we thank you. They have long since given up this notion of being civilian police commissioners.
they think they're the police.
They work for the police. They have been appointed to protect the institution, not the people. And so when given a choice, they will always choose the institution. Because that institution, as opposed to protect and serve, is really about control and suppress. So I'm glad to be back, even though I should have never been forced out. Some people up here lied on me. Bold-faced lies. And I'm glad to see that the number of police, at least they're in the back.
Next speaker, please. Who's the next speaker?
The next speaker, Thandiwe Abdullah.
So my name is Thandiwe Abdullah. I'm 15. I'm in high school. And it's been a while since I've come to police commission because I go to school that's also filled with police officers that criminalize the black students. This is a school that's 6% black, so you can only imagine what little black students there are constantly being policed every single day. But I just want to take some time to observe because, you know, children are very observant of things. I see a lot of BS on the walls. I see a lot of balding white men on the commission and, you know, one brown face, which is supposed to be the voice for all black people. Right. We've seen that with Jackie Lacey. I just want to understand, you know, you've heard the mothers come up here, tell you their stories of how they've lost their children. I've had trouble keeping a straight face through that. So you sit on this board every week, probably hearing stories just like that. I want to understand, I didn't see one tear shed, right? Not one person said, I'm sorry. Not one person said, my heart hurts for you. My heart hurts, and I don't even know what it feels like. I'm a child myself. I don't know what it feels like to lose a child, right? And you guys all sit up here covering your faces, smirking like this is not a big deal. This is a loss, right? So how are we supposed to trust you to have our interests at heart, you know? People are literally coming here begging just to understand, just to have the justice that they deserve. And you have the nerve to not offer any support, any help. That's ridiculous, and it's inhumane. Yeah. So I wonder what's there in place of your heart.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next three speakers, please. Adam Smith, Paula Miner, and Tabitha.
This LAUS teacher is so proud. Yes.
Good morning. All right, Adam. Welcome back, Akili. Because there's so many people here today, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing, I want to raise 2 points. We knew that as we got out of court for Dr. Abdullah around the corner that they were going to try to rush through the agenda. Part of rushing through that agenda are the consent agenda items, which are generally donations, and they're generally donations from something called the Los Angeles Police Foundation. Today there was $104,000 that was approved through donations from the LA Police Foundation. And if you come here ever during the consent agenda items, they don't ever discuss them. They don't ask questions. They don't say, what is this for? And what it's for, according to their explanation, is for stuff that they can't fit into the ever-expanding $1.8 billion police budget. And the problem with that is that when the private foundations, the police foundation only exists to fund the LAPD. When the foundation money buys these pieces of equipment, this surveillance equipment, these cameras for drug cops, for whatever they're using it for this week, because it gets bought, because it's getting used by foundation money, the next year, when the budget comes out, it's part of the budget. So it's not stuff that doesn't fit into the budget because they fit it into the budget by getting it through foundation money. And also, speaking to everyone here, Akili brought it up, BLM and Stop LAPD Spying and LA Can have been holding down these meetings for years. And I would just implore folks that can come on Tuesday mornings. They make it inaccessible for a reason. They don't want us to show up, especially Steve. And he hates black people. So show up Tuesday mornings at 9:30 if you can.
Paula Miner, followed by Tabitha, Audrey George, and Eugene.
There are a lot of things that I could comment on today in the public comment, but today I do want to call out Steve Soboroff, especially to inform a lot of people who are here today who don't understand what we suffer when we come here weekly. Steve Soboroff is a wealthy oligarch who consistently tries to shut down black protests when we comment on police policy and actions. As a member of this so-called civilian commission, your actions are a travesty, and for the rest of the commissioners who sit here silently and allow him to control, allow him to dictate, you are equally as guilty. You have tried to shut us down by arresting us for speaking out too long, for raising our hands, for walking out the wrong door, for speaking out when you wanted silence. And these are not unlawful actions. These are not against the law. These are things you may not like, but they are not crimes. We also note that all the arrests that have occurred in here have been of black people. You know, other people raise their hands, other people say ugly, ugly, insulting things. When we talk about police policy and actions, we're not insulting you. We're talking about facts. Other people say other things, and they are not arrested. So we come here from the pretrial hearing of Dr. Molina. You're a part of shamefully having her arrested and prosecuted. Wasting public money for a trial that's going to go on. This is the third time that she has been in that courthouse. Think about how much that costs. We also welcome back our brother Akili, who you had arrested. And then last, but certainly not least, I have to raise the name of Albert Ramon Dorsey, who was killed unlawfully, shot in the back, according to the independent autopsy. In the Hollywood 24-hour fitness. Say his name. Albert Ramon Dorsey. Say his name. Albert Ramon Dorsey.
I'm here to lift up things that we've already said because it seems that you miss it when we say it. So we're going to keep saying it until you hear us. Yes. I want to first lift up the fact that a child has spoken the truth to you. And when children speak the truth, it is wisdom, not folly. So heed the truth of a child, Thandiwe Abdullah, who has told you what you are doing to our communities and demands dignity and respect. Because what we know as we sit here today is that history is very rarely history. The history that you aim to lift up as we think about Martin Luther King Jr. is in fact the very tactics that you are engaged in and complicit in today. So we know that your collusion and abject disregard for our humanity is linked to an agenda of criminalization of our children, an agenda of privatizing our schools, which we're winning against you, an agenda of killing our people, and going further to then criminalize black protest. So as you dare utter the name of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who engaged in the kind of direct action that Baba Akili and Melina Abdullah and General Jeff and all those who are here today has lifted up, he engaged in direct action that was against the militarism, the white supremacy, the racial capitalism, and the settler colonialism of the state, which you actively maintain today. Let's be clear about that. Your tactics require that you acknowledge that you're beneficiaries of all of those things. You're beneficiaries of white supremacy. You're beneficiaries of militarism. You're beneficiaries of racial capitalism, and you will not silence us. You will not stop us from speaking truth to power. You cannot require us to be nice to you. That is not the law. How dare you ask us to be nice to you when you kill our people? We will not be nice. We are outraged with the mothers who sit in this room. How dare you not be outraged? Where is your humanity? Yes. Where is your humanity? Each one of you, don't look down.
Next speaker.
Make sure you pay attention to what we say because we're speaking.
Next speaker, please.
The next speaker, Audrey George, please.
George.
The charges against Dr. Melina Abdullah are dropped because you made that happen.
Mr. T. Fank and Mr. Soboroff, this is your last warning. You are the responsible people for why Dr. Melina Abdullah is being prosecuted and had to go to court today. Over 60 of us showed up in that court to support her, and you're not, you're going to rue the day. You're going to rue the day because the racism in this room is going to be revealed so publicly, and you are going to lose this battle. And Mr. Bonner and Ms. Decker, I figured that you probably have never had the privilege and pleasure of meeting our esteemed Greg Akili, Baba Akili, and I wanted to welcome back, and you are going to hear more truth to the injustice that goes on in this room and in this city and in this county, and I think you will learn something every time you come and hear Greg Akili speaking. And I just want to say one more thing, and that is to Michael Moore. Chief Moore, I heard that that press conference, and I noted that you said that this drone program was what the people wanted. Lies. Emails, postcards, phone calls. It was overwhelming in the 90th percentile. People against, activists against the drone program. So if people wanted it, they were sure very silent about it.
Next speaker, it's Eugene.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on speaking, but I'll speak. I assume, Steve, you believe in God, or many of you here believe in God, or are against murder. I think a lot of you are smart enough to understand that what is happening here is you guys sanctioning murder every single day. And if you guys are supposed to be the arbiters of justice or of righteousness, then I would hope that you would understand that there is a consequence for upholding an injustice every single time, every single day, that eventually this will catch up to you. And Steve, I know you have a kid, I know you have a grandson. I would hope that you wanted to imprint in their minds that you were a good person that actually was against murder, was against killing, was against racism. And I hope you know that at this point you are leaving a negative, horrible stain on not just their lives, but on everyone's lives here. Everyone's lives here that have been affected by this. Everyone, as a matter of fact, on this panel is contributing to the demise and decay of society. And there will be a point, there will be a time where all of this will catch up to you guys. I am here as a warning that this cannot continue happening. This injustice cannot continue happening. There's going to be a price to pay eventually for sanctioning the murder of black lives, of brown lives, of all of these lives. Eventually, this will catch up to. So I am here as an arbiter of peace, letting you know that eventually, if you do not hold these cops accountable, hold these murderers accountable, then it will eventually come to your front doors. Just like the fires up there in Malibu and Thousand Oaks eventually came to the rich people's homes, those same fires that burned through the people who were against Proposition 10, that were against affordable housing for the poor, will eventually...
Next speaker.
I'm letting you know this will eventually get you, Steve.
Yeah. Sir, if you have a threat, if you're making a threat to me, you're going to hear about it from a lot more. Sit down. Sit down.
Or what? It will reach your doorstep. And your son will eventually abandon you too, because he actually is a good fucking person. Unlike you. They will eventually come to you.
Officer, remove this gentleman from the room.
For what? For what?
I'll take my chances. I've given you plenty of warnings. I told you to sit down and you didn't sit down. You're out. Akili, sit down or you're out. Mr. Akili, sit down or you'll be leaving. This meeting's not. We have a motion for can't continue, so we're going to, we'll either recess. We have a motion to adjourn the meeting, to move to a closed session.
Get out! Leave! Get out!
Recess into closed session, please. You have a motion to recess into closed session? It's going to move to recess into closed session. Then move it. Okay. All those in favor?
You have public comment on the closed session items. The record submitted for public comment on the closed session items.
Going to closed session.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss items 5A1 and 2.
You can't talk about your son, but, you know, I mean, come on. I saw your head get red.
The Police Commissioners has concluded its work in closed session. We're back in open session. In closed session, item number 5A1 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. In closed session, item number 5A2 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. Mr. President, is there a motion to adjourn?
Hi, I'm Nina. This is my daughter Miranda, and we live in Silver Lake. We love the cultural diversity of Los Angeles. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35. Our city, our channel.